Okay. So welcome to everybody to the Columbus Karma Tsultrim Gyamtso's book club, autumn book club on the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. We'll be basing our class on this book, which is now out of print, but it is the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva by Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso. But the ebook, which I think I'm probably going to put on screen for folks who can't both watch Zoom and look at their ebook, we'll be showing that ebook sometime during the program tonight. And then over in chat, you will see that we have the link to the ebook, as well as a link to a recitation copy of the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. And we'll be talking more about that in a few minutes. Okay, so I'm going to start. One more thing, one more piece of housekeeping is to say thank you to all of you who donated to attend this class, because the donations that you give are going to the Columbus Karma Tsultrim Gyamtso's rebuilding program. As you know, our center was destroyed in an arson fire in January of 2016, and we have spent the last 4.5 years raising money to rebuild our center in downtown Columbus, Ohio. And right now, if you look up Columbus KTC on Facebook, you'll see pictures of the concrete walls and the elevator going in. So the construction started on the 8th of September 2020, and we're very excited and hope it will be finished next year. But meanwhile, we still have about somewhere around $350,000 to raise, so we don't have to take out loans. So every dollar you donated for this program over the cost to provide Eventbrite will go directly to the Columbus KTC's rebuilding program. And so that means that as of now, we've raised about $1,000, all of you who have signed up for one class or two classes, 3, 4, or all 5 classes. You've helped us raise $1,000 for the KTC rebuilding. So I'm delighted about that. So, okay. So in the Columbus Karma Tsultrim Gyamtso has been the Buddhist Meditation Center of Columbus, Ohio, under His Holiness the 16th and then 17th Karmapa since 1977. The 16th Karmapa visited Columbus Karma Tsultrim Gyamtso in October of 1980, and that was the year before His Holiness the 16th Karmapa passed away. His Holiness did the Black Crown ceremony in the Student Union at Ohio State University, during which a ceremony several people took refuge. So we have a long history in Columbus of providing meditation instruction and programs in the Karma Kagyu tradition of Tibetan Buddhism under His Holiness the 16th Karmapa and the 17th Karmapa. So Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso was our founder, and as you know, he passed away last year. So we're coming up on the first anniversary of his parinirvana. We've already passed the solar anniversary of his passing on October the 5th, or I'm sorry, October the 6th, and then we're coming up on the lunar anniversary here at the end of this month. Okay, so so I'm going to begin our class on the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva with a Buddhist prayer. This will be the 4-line refuge prayer. I'll be reciting it in the Tibetan language. If this is a prayer with which you're familiar, you can join in at home. I've muted the microphone, so there's not a cacophony, but you can join in at home. But if it's a prayer with which you're unfamiliar, you can join in your heart and in your mind, thinking that you dedicate this, this session to the benefit of all suffering beings. O Sanje Chudan Soji Chonam La Jangchu Pardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Daji Jinso Jipe Sunam Ki Drola Pinshir Sanjay Druparsho Sanjay Chudan Sochi Chonamla Jangchu Pardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Daji Jinso Jipe Sunam Ki Drola Pinshir Sanjay Druparsho Sanjay Chudan Sochi Chonamla Jangchu Pardu Tani Kyapsu Chi Daji Jinso Jibe Sunam Ki Drola Pinchir Sanjay Druparsho O Palen Lama Rinpoche Tagi Chior Pede Ten Shula Kadrin Jembo Koneche Sunte Kusun Tugging a Drip Sal to Soul. Okay, thanks everyone. Once again, welcome and thanks for joining us this evening. The idea for this program started in the summer when we were doing our summer book club on the book The Great Path of Awakening. Many of you here who are here this evening were here for our summer book club on The Great Path of Awakening by Jamgon Khantrul, the mind training textbook written by the 12th century master Chikawa Yeshe Dorje and commented on by the 19th century master Jamgon Khantrul the Great. And it was during this program that I got the idea to do a second book club for the autumn on the 37 practices. And the reason that I chose 37 practices is because it can be a challenging book for people. And because it can be a challenging book, I wanted the opportunity to walk through the book with a group so that we could come to an understanding as to why it was written the way it was written and what the significance of this book is as training in the Bodhisattva path. And because sometimes books are challenging. And I guess you could say that some of the books from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition are especially challenging. And so because of the difference in era and culture and society and everything, sometimes the books come off sounding a little weird. And I want to have the opportunity to make them more accessible to you. Now, of course, I have to let you know here at the outset, I am not a Buddhist scholar. I do not even play one on television. My 4-year college degree was in journalism. So I guess you could say I was a professional interviewer for 15 years. So I was a professional interviewer and writer for 15 years. And then I had met Khenpo Tsultrim Rinpoche very early in my career as a journalist. In fact, I had interviewed him for my newspaper. And so that's how I met Khenpo Tsultrim Rinpoche. And then after having worked for the newspaper for 15 years, I found out that Rinpoche was offering the 3-year retreat experience for his students in upstate New York at the Carmeling Retreat Center. And I signed up and I got the blessing to go from my family. And then I undertook the 3-year retreat from 1993 to 1996. And after 1996, Khenpo Tsultrim Rinpoche asked me to go back to the Columbus, Ohio KTC, Karma Tetsum Choling Center that I come from, and teach there. And he gave me, he got out, he dictated a list of everything that he wanted me to teach. And at the conclusion, he wanted me to teach the mantra of Chenrezig and Tara, and also to teach about the Four Noble Truths and the basics of Buddhist practice and things like this. He asked me to do these things. And at the end of the list, he had not mentioned the teachings on the Bodhisattva path on Lojong. And I said, Rinpoche, is it okay if I teach these? And he said, oh, yes, yes, of course. And then he gave me my Zen riddle that I have spent the rest of my life trying to solve, which he said, make sure that you tell everyone that you know that you meet. Make sure you tell everyone that they can achieve full Buddhahood simply by practicing love and compassion. And that was the introduction for me to a lifelong study of the books on Bodhisattva literature. So the two main books that I've studied have been The Great Path of Awakening, which I've studied for about 15 years, and then the 37 practices. So even though I'm not a scholar, I've read it a lot, and I don't know that that qualifies me for anything, but at least it qualifies me to lead a book club. So I'm going to lead us through a book club, and we're going to learn about the book together. So that's a little bit about my background, and that Khenpo Rinpoche has, a few years after I started teaching, I went back and I said to Rinpoche, I said, I make a lot of mistakes in teaching. I'm not really the sharpest person in the world. Are you sure you still want me to keep teaching? And he said, yes, just keep going, keep having a pure motivation, and everything will turn out all right. And then I would go to him and I say, okay, Rinpoche, I made this mistake. And he'd go, uh-huh. And oh, Rinpoche, I made this mistake. You go, uh-huh. And so eventually, through working with Rinpoche, I'm still making mistakes, but I feel better about the process and trying to have at least a pure-hearted way of trying to present the Dharma as best I can. Khenpo Rinpoche's nephew, Lama Drodol, he comforted me one time. He said, we are all works in progress. We're not great teachers or anything like that. He said, we're just trying to present the Dharma as best we can. And then he comforted me by saying, you know what Milarepa said? Milarepa said, if you have a pure motivation, even if you make mistakes, things will turn out right in the end. So that helped me a lot. So Khenpo Rinpoche also said, if you know just one more thing than the person next to you, he said, you can help them. So help them. So in any case, so here we are studying this book together. I've received the reading transmission for the 37 actions or the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva several times, including from Khenpo Rinpoche himself. And part of the reason that I wanted to undertake this particular book club this year is because of the work of Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso, this great master who is now in retirement in Nepal, but who spent a lot of time talking about the Bodhisattva path and introducing this book to his students. In fact, when a few of my friends went to visit the great master Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso, they asked him, oh, Rinpoche, you're such a great master. Please teach us about the Bodhisattva path. Please teach us. And he said, oh yeah, you want to learn about compassion? Oh yeah, you want to learn about the Bodhisattva path? He said, good. Here's a copy of the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. He said, now I want you to read it out loud 1,000 times. And after you have read it out loud 1,000 times, come back and let's talk about it. And this, of course, was a horrible shock to virtually everyone who heard it. And but it was how he taught. And I actually have met and know several people who have actually recited the entire 37 practices 1,000 times. In fact, there's someone from the Columbus KTC who just recently, I think a few months ago, finished, and we talked a bit, and I said, well, now that you've finished, what do you want to do? And they said, I think I'm going to do it again. And so I got him a new copy because the previous copy was really kind of, it had shown the age, So now he's reading it again another 1,000 times. I'm hoping he'll go for 3. What you find when you read a book like this is the first time you read it, you might say, nice book. The second time you read it, you might say, ooh, there's stuff I didn't notice about this the first time. And then along about the third time you read it, it starts teaching you, because after a while, parts of the book will jump out at you. And here's one. Since beginningless time, your mothers, meaning all sentient beings who were once your mother, since beginningless time, your mothers have cared for you. If they now suffer, what good is your own happiness? Therefore, in order to liberate limitless sentient beings, giving rise to bodhicitta is the practice of a bodhisattva. So what I've noticed about my own life, and other people have told me this is true also, is that when they read this book, sometimes specific verses that they need to hear jump out at them from the pages of the book. And in this way, it becomes a companion for us. And it helps us to see where we're stuck in trying to learn how to be a bodhisattva and how we might get unstuck from our path as a bodhisattva. So that's another reason why I wanted to study this particular book. Additionally, I think that this would be a good time for me to make a comment, which would be, if any of you would like to undertake a serial reading of this book, I do recommend that you do so, and that you get started with the recitation copy that I put at the beginning of our chat. This recitation copy was created for the Columbus Karma Tsultrim Gyamtso by one of our Dharma students, copying it out of Khenpo Tsultrim's book. We had permission from Khenpo Tsultrim's students to reprint this. And it's the same translation that is now in the free ebook that we have also in the link for also in the chat. And it's a book that it's a very long poem actually that I recommend that you start on. Maybe you'll want to, during the 5 weeks of this class, maybe you'll want to take on the idea of reciting it 21 times, maybe. Maybe you'll want to take on the idea of reciting it 37 times, maybe. And so if you do want to start doing it, reading it out loud is best, but if you have to read it silently because other people in your house will probably not take to the Dharma as much as you would, feel free to do it silently, but it's most effective if you read it out loud. So that's a little bit about that. Let's see. Oh yeah, could someone repost the recitation copy? Oh yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, the recitation copy is farther up. Let's see. I put it in chat. Now what happened? Well, there, that's not it. Okay, well, I'll have to see if I can find it because I thought for sure I put it very early in the chat. Oh, here's the recitation copy. Yeah, it's you can find it on the Columbus KTC. There we go. There we go. So the reason that we need to study about love and compassion, and we need to practice and rehearse the practice of love and compassion, is because it doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. We might feel a lot of naturally occurring love and compassion for the people in our lives, our family members, our siblings, our children, our dear friends, and so on. But we might not have a lot of compassion for people. Sometimes even in our own family, we don't have compassion. And then sometimes we don't have compassion for public figures and people in politics and things like this, or we might not have compassion for people we view as being wrong-headed, or even whose actions are malevolent. And so we have a certain amount of naturally occurring love and compassion, which means we have the capacity to love even beyond that. But we have these people who are outside the fence of our love and compassion. And these people who are outside the fence of our current love and compassion are people we could potentially harm. And this, of course, means that our love and compassion needs to grow. If we look at the teachings of the historical Buddha Shakyamuni in his teaching on the Four Noble Truths, he said that suffering was part of life, that suffering had a cause, that suffering has a solution, and that there's a path that leads to the end of suffering. And suffering being part of life means that just by being in this world, just by being a human being or a being in this world, we experience suffering because we don't always get what we want. And sometimes we get what we want and then we lose it, or someone takes it from us. And so we're always going from one extreme to another. We're happy, we're sad, we're happy, we're sad. We get what we want. We can't, we don't get what we want. We want to get away from something and we can't get away from something. We are always at the mercy of circumstances. And the Buddha said that the reason for this was the second noble truth, the cause of suffering. He said suffering is caused by clinging and fixation. We cling to people, we cling to ideas, we cling to things. And all of these things we cling to cause us to suffer because we hold on to them so tightly that we can't even enjoy them. I remember one of my teachers once saying, "Oh, human beings, we have one very great talent." And that is that as human beings, we are very talented. We are extremely good at destroying our ability to enjoy anything by clinging to it. He said, this is how we destroy our ability to enjoy life. This is how we destroy our ability to enjoy anything, by clinging to it. And so this second noble truth, then the truth of the cause of suffering, being clinging and fixation, also follows to our own self-fixation and self-clinging that can cause us a great deal of suffering. For example, a lot of people these days are experiencing a great deal of fear. And a lot of this fear comes because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They don't know what's going to happen in a few weeks. They don't know what will happen next year, and so on. And because of their fear, they tend to cling to other things. And then they become fearful about what's going on in the world, and they become fearful about what might happen to them, and so on. And somebody asked Khenpo Rinpoche, my teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, they asked him once, where does this fear come from? He said, this fear comes from not recognizing that we have Buddha nature. And if we recognize that we had the potential for Buddha awakening within us, if we saw that we had that potential for Buddha awakening, he said, then we would not be afraid of anything. And he said, if we recognize the true nature of our own mind, which is limitlessness, he said, if we realize that, he said, our fear would not be as it is now. And so he said, this is why in Buddhism, we start everyone with learning the practice of meditation. And once people learn the practice of meditation, they can begin to understand how their minds create their experience of the world, how their mind creates their feelings and thoughts and so on. And then how their clinging manifests and causes pain and suffering. And seeing how we cause pain and suffering, this helps us to relinquish and let go of the causes of suffering, which is the third of the Four Noble Truths, the truth of the relinquishment of suffering and its causes. And then finally, the fourth noble truth is the path that leads to the path that leads to the elimination of the causes of suffering. And the path of the Buddha is summarized by the saying, "Do no harm, practice virtue, and tame your mind." Do no harm means don't hurt yourself, don't hurt others. Practice virtue means to take care of yourself and benefit others. And the third practice is to meditate, to understand your mind so that you can discover your Buddha nature, and in discovering your Buddha nature, achieve freedom from the cyclic existence that the Buddha called samsara, the cycle of birth and rebirth and grasping, clinging, suffering, and results, actions, causes, and results. And so these are the teachings of the Buddha that we're trying to study. And the Buddha gave several teachings of the Dharma. They came to be known as the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. In the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma, the Buddha taught that the self that we cling to so tightly, is actually not a singular thing. It is a multiplicity of things. It's form and feeling, mental formation, perception, and consciousness. And so the self is not a unitary thing. It's made of parts, and each of those parts is made of parts, and so on. And so that self is not an entity as much as it is. I was reading in Tralek Rinpoche's book on karma. He calls it a bundle of processes. And this bundle of processes is what we call self. And it's always moving and always changing. And in fact, the Buddha called our basic being, he called it a stream of being, like a river, a stream of being. And just as the old saying goes, you cannot put your foot into the same river twice. In other words, your self-concept is moving and changing, just like a river moves and changes from moment to moment, and you're never the same. You're always changing and always moving. And as a result, you can't pin it down and say, I am this or I am that, or my mind is this or my mind is that. And then through intellectual study, we can come to understand that the mind is not established as a thing. And this is what is taught in the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma. I guess you would call it the selflessness of self. In other words, the non-solidity of self. And in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha went a little farther. He said, not only is the self-concept made of parts, he said all things have basic limitless emptiness as their basis, which of course is really interesting when you look at modern science, because modern science says that everything is made up of atoms and molecules, right? And that that table over there might actually be 90% empty space. But when you wrap your knuckles against the table, you'll see that it's a little more solid than that. But the Buddha also taught that this was at the ultimate level of truth. Ultimate level of truth is that all things are emptiness. The relative level of truth is that things appear and follow specific rules. And so that's called the relative truth. And so the Buddha said we have to understand both the relative truth and the ultimate truth. In the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, he taught the not just the selflessness of self, but the selflessness of all phenomena. And in fact, in the Madhyamaka teachings, the Buddha posited an argument. He said, if there is a cart that is following a horse, that horse cart has a wheel, has wheels, it has a box, it has a handle. What part is cartness? is there something that makes it a cart? Did it create itself? And so on. And he said, no, the cart did not create itself. And there is no such thing as cartness. What is cartness? Is it the wheel? Is it the handle? Is it the box? And in this way, through logic, he took apart the idea that anything has an entity of itself and by itself. And instead, he said everything was interdependent. And so in these first two turnings of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha showed the non-solidity of self and the non-solidity of other. But then he went even further. In the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, he said that this emptiness is empty of everything except Buddha nature. And that in this third turning of the wheel of Dharma, he said that all things have as their nature emptiness, but that the essence of this emptiness is something called spontaneous presence. And Trungpa Rinpoche goes to great lengths to explain what spontaneous presence is in his book, The Vivid Awareness. And he's also taught it in Creation and Completion in both of those books. But as best I can understand is that from having read his explanations is that this spontaneous presence means that because nothing is established, everything is potentially there. All things have basic potentiality, have this basic empty nature as their this potentiality is their basic nature. That everything has the potential. It's not emptiness. Emptiness is not a vacuum. It's not nothing. It's all potential. So because I'm not a scholar, I won't be able to explain it any farther than that. But I'll make sure I bring some of that source material with me next week, and we can talk a little bit more about spontaneous presence then. But in the meantime, this at least gives us a start on the three turnings of the wheel of the Dharma and the Buddha's teaching that because suffering has a cause, it has a solution, and we can follow the path of taming the mind, doing no harm, and practicing virtue, and that we ourselves could become Buddhas. Somebody asked me once, well, what makes Buddhism different from all of the faith traditions in the world? And as best I can say, it appears that Buddhism is the only faith tradition in the world that teaches that all beings have the potential to accomplish the same spiritual fruition that the founder of the faith themselves accomplished. So there are few faith traditions that can say that the founder of the faith said that everybody can become like me. But that was what the Buddha taught. And he also taught us the methods to accomplish that. And in every generation, there have been enlightened beings. For 2,500 years, in every generation, every spiritual generation, there have been enlightened beings who have undertaken the path, accomplished it, and then began to teach us how to accomplish it too. So that's a little bit about basic Buddhism, the three turnings of the wheel, and the practice of meditation. But meditation is not the end practice of Buddhism, because the Buddha taught that without the practice of love and compassion, enlightenment was not possible. And the reason he said this is that if a person is doing their meditation for themselves alone, then there is always the chance that they could cling to the peace of meditation and not letting go of the peace of meditation. They may themselves become stuck in the peace of meditation and not go on to become fully liberated and fully awakened as the Buddha himself became. And so this is why during the second turning of the wheel of the Dharma, the Buddha put so much emphasis on the topic of bodhicitta. Bodhi, which I'm going to type into the chat. Bodhi, it means awakening, and citta means mind, the mind of awakening. It's an attitude. Some people call it the enlightened attitude. And so this enlightened attitude is the mind that wants to wake up in any situation, the mind that wants to awaken. And there are two types of bodhicitta, and they are relative and ultimate. The relative bodhicitta is accomplished through practicing love and compassion for yourself and for others. Ultimate bodhicitta consists of being able to rest the mind comfortably in its own nature in such a way that it sees its own nature. In the Great Path of Awakening, Jamgon Khantrul defines ultimate bodhicitta as resting evenly in a non-discursive state, free of conceptual elaborations. In other words, you're resting in a state of meditation and you no longer have concepts about things. You are free from conceptual elaboration. There's no dualism. There's no you, no others. There's just this experience of mind itself. Now, Jamgon Khantrul very wisely said in his book that true ultimate bodhicitta does not arise in the course of experience of beginners, but relative bodhicitta will arise if we train in it. And then with the accomplishment of relative bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta is realized naturally. And so it is that over time, great teachers gave a lot of teachings about bodhicitta, the relative bodhicitta, as well as the ultimate bodhicitta. There was also the teachings on the Bodhisattva vow, which can be divided into two parts, aspiration and action. The aspiration bodhicitta is saying, is going before your teacher and going before the Buddha and saying, I will work as the Buddhas of the past have worked. I will train as the Buddhas of the past have trained to become an enlightened being. And I undertake this aspiration bodhicitta. The action bodhicitta then follows the aspiration. And the action bodhicitta is practicing what are called the 6 perfect virtues, which are generosity, ethics, patience. I can spell. That may still not be spelled right. Diligence, meditation, and wisdom. And so undertaking these 6 practices, we ourselves become enlightened beings. I see I didn't spell ethics right. I have bad eyesight, so it really makes that autocorrect interesting. So these are the topics we will be covering in our study of the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. But before I go any further, I'm going to stop here and see if people want to share either by typing it into chat or by unmuting and so on, what you would most like to learn while you are doing this book study. What is it that you hope to learn the most? You can type it into chat or you can unmute, and I think that you know where the little unmute button is on your, let's see if we can, let's see here. Let's see. I think you can unmute yourself, I think. If you try it and can't do it, type into chat and let me know. I think I have it set up. No comments?
Oh, Lama Kathy.
Yeah.
My hope is to learn how to enter the Bodhisattva path. And that number of 1,000 kind of gave me a clue, kind of a roadmap.
You know, I have to tell you something. He's the only teacher who did this. Nobody else did this that I know in America. And no one did this. So he was truly unique in his teaching method by doing this. And you know, and I think that Yeah, I mean, he as a teacher, he was truly unique. I mean, and there are people on this call. I see you, you who have been at Hartford, Connecticut KTC for a long time. You got to see him up close and personal. So yeah, I'm sure you have stories to tell. But yeah, Gina, absolutely, we can handle that. Okay. So let's see what else is. Oh, we do have some in chat. Okay. To how to let go more effectively. I know it's like rehearsal, isn't it? We have to find the strength, to let go, and it takes a lot of strength, because like we've grown up thinking that thinking is important, and thinking that if we just think hard enough, we'll think our way out of a situation. We've relied on our own control of the situation in so many ways. And so letting go is this kind of a scary proposition. I've written it down on the list. I totally agree with that. Oh yes, well, bless your heart. I have some bad news for you, for you, Christine. That's not the book we're studying. Christine was asking about another fabulous book called The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva is a fabulous book. Unfortunately, it's not what we're studying, but we'll give it a glancing look as we go past it. Chapter 9, I remember when Pema Chodron wrote her great commentary on the Shantideva's Way of the Bodhisattva. It's called No Time to Lose. By the way, I highly recommend, if anybody wants to read Shantideva, read it in the context of Pema Chodron's book. It's just the best. She doesn't teach chapter 9. A person has to be incredibly educated to teach chapter 9, and that's not me. I do not understand emptiness enough to even explain spontaneous presence properly. So I will definitely not be able to do all of the arguments that are in chapter 9. What's really great is that Shantideva's book is essentially a poem. It's a 10-chapter poem, with the exception of chapter 9, which is a debate between two seemingly disagreeing viewpoints on emptiness, but they do agree and they don't agree, but I don't know enough about it to teach it. Let's see what else. Let's see what else. Okay, decrease fear. Oh yeah, how to apply the practices in everyday life. Yes, especially during these difficult times. Completely agree. Hope to use the benefit of hearing great teachings and working diligent with the Sangha. Yes. Yes, on the path for immeasurable lifetimes. I tell you what, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, after he presided over the Bodhisattva vow one time, he said, you're never going to be bored for the rest of your life if you start practicing the Bodhisattva path. Never. Assist others. So yes. Another person is, for me, it's using this book in conjunction with Great Path and Nundro. By the way, I apologize. It says my internet connection is unstable, so this might cut out a bit. I love living with cable internet. Let's not go into that. I might break my bodhicitta here. For me, okay, so knowing how this relates and goes together. Oh yeah, Great Path and Nundro. Yes, I can build that bridge for you. Yes. Then the next one, decrease fear for and of others. Yeah, and to transmute that into consistent compassion. I'll tell you what, we may not ever become consistently compassionate in all situations, but boy, oh boy, we need to do this right now. I was visiting my doctor today, and she said, I really liked the first month when of quarantine, when everybody was nice to everybody and everybody was supportive of everybody. But she said, where we've come to, I'm not so crazy about, but we'll see what we can do about that. Yeah. Overcoming fear. And then the connections between Nundro, which is the practice of Mahamudra, and then developing bodhicitta for myself. Yep, I totally understand. Yep, we need that. And then kind of like to get over feeling overwhelmed by the idea of the Bodhisattva vow. Oh yeah. Yeah, we've talked about, I'll tell you what, we've talked about this in the past, but you can always go deeper on this. We can always go deeper on this because when we talk about what it takes to change, that's really, to me, at the heart of what you're saying, of what Bill's question is here. What does it take to change? And what part of ourself is holding us back from change? If we can identify what part of us is holding us back, and then begin to have compassion for that part of us that's holding us back. Okay, now I know that's kind of a hard thing to think about, but there's part of us that is stuck somewhere, and that stuck part of us is holding us back from going deeper. And is holding us back from doing our practice. It's holding us back from doing practice, and all of these things. It's holding us back. If we can identify that and start having compassion for that, then I think one person quoted Leonard Cohen, ring all the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets through. And so I think that's kind of where we're going with this. Helders wants to know about, yeah, I think you'll be able to, by the way, Bill, I think Bodhisattva vow, we'll walk you through that one. We'll be here for you. Learn about
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What Bodhisattva practice is. Yes, it's gonna, yeah. Is it possible to become when you're still alive? I'll tell you what, a lot of people feel that there may not be bodhisattvas living now because how, with everything that's going on. But I'm a little prejudiced. I really think Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche was a living bodhisattva. I don't know any of you who met him could probably attest to the fact that he loved everybody all the time, no matter what. So yeah, I think it can be done. Because he told me, he said, tell everybody that they can achieve Buddhahood through through love and compassion. Yeah, we're talking about the 37 practices of a bodhisattva, which is not divided into 10 chapters. That's the, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a problem. Oh yeah, no time to lose. Got a fan for no time to lose. Changed my mindset so that thinking of others becomes more automatic. Very good. Oh, I think we can get you covered. It may not become automatic, but it's going to get better. I mean, right? Even if we just improve 1%, we'll get there. Okay. Yeah, automatic. And then I don't know if this makes sense, but I have been struggling working on cultivating trust or faith, and this feels like it would help. Khenpo Rinpoche said something to me about faith one time. He said, look, he said, those of you who live here in America, he said, you didn't grow up with Buddhism. You don't have, it's not your fault. I mean, you didn't grow up with Buddhism. This is all strange and exotic to you. He said, but because you've obviously had some connection with Dharma in previous lifetimes, he said, because you've had some kind of karmic connection with the Dharma, you like it. And because you like it, you will eventually be able to understand it. And I think that he said the thing that he felt would work the best would be to start practicing meditation. Because he said when a person practices even just basic sitting meditation, he said they will begin to experience themselves differently. And he said, and when they see that their own potential for change, when they see that they have the potential for change, he said that will give them faith that the teachings of the Buddha are meaningful and that the teachings of the Buddha will help them change, which I think. So yeah, Tracy, I'm totally with you on that. Heidi says, new to all of this. Oh, I know. It's, I've been studying Buddhism for like 40 years and I still can't explain everything. I mean, so it's like, but as I say, I wasn't really all that smart to start with. For now, I just want exposure to help solidify the things I've been learning. Excellent. Yeah, we'll help support you in this. One of the good things about having a professional explainer, I can tell people I was a journalist. I was an official explainer. I was a professional explainer and that's why I really love talking about Dharma, because I remember what it was like to not know anything about Dharma and feel like, can I understand this? Can I get this? And sometimes I'll still use big Buddhist concept words and stuff, and then I have to back up. So we'll work with you here, Heidi. Life transitions. Oh yeah. An opportunity to reground oneself. Boy, I tell you what, that's really true, because there are so many transitions. I just had a phone call with someone yesterday who said, I've got a big life decision coming up and I need to kind of walk through it and to see who I will be on the other side of it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of transitions going on for a lot of people right now. This is where I struggle. So Tracy, do you mean like the life transitions, or are you meaning the other?
Oh, no, I was actually referring to what Bill said, but I was typing something in. I really, at this point, like I need some more motivation, but I also find that I'm almost fearful of my practice, if that makes sense, and commitment, like commitment of that time. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I can, you know what I mean?
There's two possibilities there. Let me see which one it's more like for you. Is it more like you don't know if you can spare the time for Dharma, or is it that you're not totally convinced that it's going to change you? Or the third possibility, are you concerned that it will change you?
Oh, it's the time part.
It's the time part. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've seen all three of these. People express all three of these.
Yeah.
Different people have different reasons. Yeah, time is tough, but here's the thing about bodhicitta. Trungpa Rinpoche, one of the really masterful teachers of our Kagyu tradition, he said that for Western people, bodhicitta is almost like the ideal practice, because he said you all have to work so hard to make a living. You just have to work so hard, and you have all these responsibilities. You have children, you have job, you have home. We have so many things to do, he said. So you doing the practices of bodhicitta, where you're learning how to ground yourself in love, how to ground yourself in the attitude of waking up while you are still doing your everyday life. I think that might help, because he said you don't have to like run away from home. You don't have to run away. I mean, although many of us like we're ready sometimes, right? But you don't have to run away from home to practice Dharma. You can be in your life if you can practice bodhicitta. Does that make sense, Tracy?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah. So I think we're going to be able to help with that. Let's see. Saw a great quote today from Elizabeth Gilbert. The person who you think you are can't handle life, but the person who you actually are can. Yeah. Wow. Way to go. Everything becomes practice. Boy, absolutely true. Everything. And this will help you too, Tracy, because what's cool is that in the Bodhisattva practice, or this bodhicitta practice, you don't have to throw anything out. That is what's cool. If you are angry and upset, you can practice right then. And if you're feeling placid and serene, you can practice right then. And so you can find that there are techniques for practicing in the midst of all of that. Okay, wow. Thanks for the feedback, guys. And I will try to make sure that these get some time throughout, at different spots throughout the presentation. I'm looking at the time. Oh, I skipped. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, there was, oh, Patricia, I skipped you. Sorry, sweetie. There it is. Sometimes the practices described in 37 practice seem dramatic and extreme, so would like to understand wisdom, compassion in them. Oh yes, 100%. At the very beginning of the class, I said sometimes Tibetan writing is a little bit exotic and a little weird and a little troubling. And that's what we're going to get into. We're going to talk about the style of writing that is used here, and why the things that Ngulchu Thogme says sound so extreme. So yeah, the hint, here's a little, just a little hint. If you think that, if great bodhisattvas can practice even in the middle of disaster, this is the basic theme of the whole deal, This is the basic theme of the entire book. Okay, here it is, the entire theme of the entire book. It's, I'm going to even type it in so that we make sure we get it in here. If great bodhisattvas can practice love and compassion in the midst of the worst things that can happen to a person, surely I can practice a tiny bit of that kind of love in my own practice. So this is really kind of the theme of the whole book. If great bodhisattvas can practice love and compassion in the midst of the worst things that can happen to a person, surely I, who am just a beginning bodhisattva, can practice a tiny bit of that kind of love in my own practice. So what this book shows is it shows the many extremes in life and how bodhisattvas approach the many extremes in life. And then what we can do is we can say, well, even if I can't do this giant thing that the bodhisattvas can do, I can at least do my little tiny training wheels version of that. So hopefully that will help. Thank you for that question, Patricia. This is precisely why I wanted to teach this book, so I could talk about the literary devices that are used in this kind of literature and how we can read through them. Because you're right, sometimes people read these things and they think that they're being asked to do something that's completely impossible. Completely impossible. It's like, this book is asking me to, to forgive someone who is killing me. Oh, there's no way I could do this. But that's kind of, in a way, it's distracting from the point, which is that we all need to work on all parts of our life. And if we can start making even just a tiny bit of progress in that direction, we'll eventually get to the highest level. Khenpo Rinpoche was teaching on bodhicitta once, and he said, yes, we read in the Buddha's teachings about great bodhisattvas who give up their lives for others. And we think, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And then Rinpoche, in his kind way, he said, we're not being asked to give everything right now. We're being asked to give what we can as we are able. We're being asked to give what we can as we are able. So I think that this is really important point, because I think what happens is, because we grew up in a society that that has prized and treasured perfection. We sometimes take on a perfectionistic idea, thinking we have to be perfect, or we have to manifest the highest and the best, and that we cannot just be trainees. We have to be instantly good at everything. And I think that this holds us back. Earlier, when we were talking about writing down whatever that thing is that holds us back and then having compassion for that, I think we can have compassion for the part of us that wants to be perfect. I think that that if we can do this, if we can begin to have compassion for ourselves, then we'll gradually be able to have compassion for others. Okay. Let's see, where are we at in the time? Okay, we're hanging in there. Let's see. Oh, very good. I needed to check in and say thanks to the folks who joined. I see we made it above 50. That's good. We had 57 people sign up for the course, and I was worried at the beginning when we didn't quite have everybody. So thank you for being here. Does anybody else want to offer any other thing they would like to learn from the class before we go on? Okay. So I'm thinking that one of the things we could do is we can go through, let me see if I can make this work. Yeah, okay, good. I'm gonna open up this and see if I can share the screen. I might get lucky. I don't know. Yeah, there it is. Let's see if it'll work. Hey, it worked. All right. Here's the Columbus KTC one time took on the task of trying to read the 37 actions of a Bodhisattva as a group a large number of times. I can't remember if we did 1,000. I think we did 1,000. And we started by reciting the refuge prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings. And then we would recite the four immeasurables. May all sentient beings gain happiness and the cause of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be cut off from the highest bliss, which is devoid of suffering. May they come to rest in great impartiality, which is free of attachment and aversion. Then this is the dedication prayer for the end. And the practice, the 37 practices, was written by Ngulchu Thogme, who lived from the year 1295 to the year 1369. So you could say he crossed over from the 13th to the 14th century. He had a lot of natural love and compassion, even as a child. And he then continued as an adult to study and practice the teachings on bodhicitta. And then he undertook a retreat, and during his retreat, he wrote this book. At Khenpo Tsultrim's aspiration at the beginning of the book, he says, "May the virtue that arises from working with this text contribute to the liberation and happiness of all beings." And I think this is lovely. What this means is that wherever we are in our lives, we're not perfect people, let's face it, and we have a long way to go. But every step we make toward awakening gets us closer and closer. And so Khenpo Tsultrim says, let us begin by developing the enlightened attitude that we want to attain the perfect state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, in number as vast as the sky. To accomplish this state, we must diligently engage in listening, reflecting, and meditating upon the genuine teachings. And then he says, in general, the tradition of the Mahayana, which is that second turning of the wheel of Dharma, contains two types of practices. One purifies obscurations of the mind. The other develops a sound motivation, a good attitude. So this will help the people who said that they want to develop methods for bringing more love into their life, and they want to develop methods for automatically thinking of others. The training that we will undertake in this book will help us to do that, because he's saying the two types of practices in the Mahayana, one is purifying the obscurations of mind, and the other is developing a sound motivation, a good attitude. The practice of purification, he says, is done through progressively meditating on emptiness, and then which he has written about in another book. And then he said in Tibetan, the title of this text is much more extensive than its English counterpart. The Tibetan reads, "The 37 Practices of a Bodhisattva, a summary of the heart essence of how a bodhisattva has to behave." The title indicates 2 points. First, that the text condenses all of the Mahayana sutras, which teach the conduct of a bodhisattva. And second, that it summarizes the heart essence of a bodhisattva's conduct, of which there are 37 main practices. In the Tibetan language, the word for practice literally translates as to bring into experience. So these 37 practices can actually be brought into our experience. While the 37 practices of a bodhisattva contains a few stanzas on the progressive stages of meditation on emptiness, the text deals primarily with meditation on the relative aspect of bodhicitta. Its purpose is to help us with our motivation. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said one time that the reason we need to change our motivation is that from the time we were very small until now, he said, we have mostly been concerned with ourselves and mostly worked for ourselves. And because of that, we have accumulated a great deal of negative karma because we have only ever been self-motivated. And so we need to apply love and compassion in such a way that our love and compassion begins to uproot our selfishness. And so this is why some of the practices seem to be a little on the extreme side, because right now we've been lulled into a sense of complacency about ourselves. And this allows us to see that our negativity is actually holding us back from awakening and that we need to purify it. And so the 37 chapters or stanzas of this book are the method for achieving this change. A lot of my friends are in the 12-step tradition. I have a lot of friends in the 12-step tradition of recovery. And they talk a lot about having the courage to change. And I think sometimes that comes from, being tired. I think my friend said you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And after you reach this being tired and weary of your situation, then you begin to develop the courage to change your life and to do things differently. And so this text, which begins in the first verse and goes on to the 37th verse, talks about how we can get the courage to change. And so here's an example of it in the very first verse. He says, I'm sorry, we won't go to the first verse yet. We should read his aspiration first. Most Tibetan authors will start with an aspiration. Namo Lokeshvaraya, Lokeshvaraya is one of the names for the Bodhisattva of compassion, Chenrezig. It was said that when Chenrezig took the Bodhisattva vow, he vowed that he would remain behind in samsara until all beings had been liberated. This was such an unusual aspiration that all of the beings in the assembly bowed to him, because that was a pretty strong thing to wish that one would not leave samsara until all beings had been liberated. I asked Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche about this once. I said, is it really possible that they will hold back becoming enlightened beings until all other beings have been liberated? And he said, it's their aspiration, he said, but that's not how it happens. He said, when they're sitting in meditation, they're not going to sit back and they're not going to say, no, I don't want to become enlightened. He said, no, it won't happen like that. He said, helplessly, they become enlightened anyway. But he said, what happens is that they stay behind. They do stay behind to benefit and to liberate others, which, now that they themselves have become liberated, allows them to work much more effectively and much more powerfully. So he's calling here, Namo means praise, Namo Lokeshvaraya. So he's praising the Bodhisattva who had the strongest courage, the Bodhisattva who was so courageous that he said, I will stay behind and be the last one to turn out the light on samsara. And so he bows to him. Namo Lokeshvaraya. You see that all phenomena neither come nor go, still you strive solely for the benefit of beings. Supreme Guru and Protector Chenrezig, to you I continually bow with body, speech, and mind. So the first phrase, you see that all phenomena neither come nor go, what he's talking about here is that Chenrezig, who himself has arrived at the 10th level of a bodhisattva's awakening, understands the true nature of all things. That things, in fact, Khenpo Tsultrim in his commentary says, he is the noble one who dwells on the bhumis, or the levels of awakening. Chenrezig has seen that on an absolute level, no phenomena of samsara and nirvana exist on their own. Therefore, he realizes that phenomena neither arise nor cease, neither come nor go. Although he realizes that phenomena have no self-nature, he still works diligently on behalf of others. He has abandoned self-interest and strives only to benefit beings. And so this, the supreme, he calls him the supreme guru and protector, because he is the teacher of the Bodhisattva path. He is our protector from the sufferings of samsara, because by praying to him, he provides us with reassurance and comfort, and therefore protects us from the sufferings that we experience in samsara. So, Supreme Guru and Protector Chenrezig, to you I continually bow with body, speech, and mind. And so he's saying at the outset, I have nothing to say, but I offer the teachings of Lokeshvara, who I honor. The next verse of the aspiration, he says, the perfect Buddhas, sources of benefit and happiness, arise from accomplishing the genuine Dharma, since that in turn depends on knowing how to practice, the practices of a bodhisattva shall be explained. And so you could say that the word benefit here has to do with relative bodhicitta, in that it has to do with the benefit of beings who are stuck in samsara. And happiness here means the ultimate stainless happiness of Buddhahood, and therefore this stands for the ultimate bodhicitta. So the perfect Buddhas are the source of relative and ultimate teachings, and that the Buddhas themselves arise from accomplishing the genuine teachings. They already have given up all that needs to be given up and have embraced all that needs to be embraced. So since that in turn depends on knowing how to practice, the practices of a bodhisattva shall be explained. And so this is what is coming in the first, in the 37 practices. In order to provide some of what the Tibetans call ten drel, or auspicious connection, we'll at least get through the first verse today. Practice number 1. In Khenpo Tsultrim's text, those of you who are following along, he gives as the theme, he gives a theme for each of the 37 practices. The theme of the first practice is commitment. Now that you have obtained the precious human body, the great boat so difficult to find, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of samsara, to listen, reflect, and meditate with diligence day and night is the practice of a bodhisattva. This I think, this refers to something that many people will know as the first of the 4 reminders, or the first of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind toward Dharma. When we're first thinking about changing our life and changing our mind, we first have to recognize how lucky we are to be human and to study the Dharma right here and right now. And so that's why we start with gratitude. I know a lot of people find these days that making gratitude lists of the things they're grateful for really helps them. And so he says, so this is the first thing we should be grateful for. Now that you have obtained the precious human body, that we have all of these, it's said that the human body has 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. And I can go through those for you next time. But suffice it to say that we are free from rebirth in the lower states of existence and the other states of samsara. And it is said by the Buddha that human beings have the greatest potential to reach Buddhahood because they are not completely mired in suffering as beings in hell are mired, and they're not totally distracted by pleasures and enjoyments as those who live in the God realm. So we are halfway in between these two, and having some happiness and some suffering. We know that we want happiness, and we know that we want to let go of suffering. Therefore, we're very fortunate to have this human body with the freedom to practice the Dharma. And this, he calls it the great boat. This is because frequently the word paramita, or to the other shore, is used in Mahayana Buddhism. And the word paramita, which means perfection, which means going to the other shore, is often symbolized by a river that is, or a body of water that is crossed by a boat. So we now have the boat, this precious human life, to practice the Dharma and achieve enlightenment. So in order to free ourselves and others from the ocean of samsara, to listen, reflect, and meditate with diligence day and night is the practice of a bodhisattva. And as I mentioned, one of the literary devices used by these Buddhist authors is a little bit of irony, a little bit of exaggeration. And so he's going to talk about the ideal case of a perfect bodhisattva who has the capacity to practice what are called the 3 prajnas. The word prajna, 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 means wisdom or knowledge. The 3 prajnas are hearing the Dharma, contemplating the Dharma, and practicing the Dharma, or meditating upon the Dharma. So we have to listen to the Dharma or we won't know what to practice. We have to reflect on it so we are motivated to practice. And then if we actually practice, then we receive the result. If we only study the Dharma, but never analyze it or question it or work with it or reflect upon it, it doesn't go as far as it does if we would reflect on it. And if we learn it and reflect on it, but then never meditate, we'll never obtain the fruition. So having all three, listening, reflection, and meditation. And he says to do this with diligence day and night. Well, we may not be able to practice day and night because we're very busy. We have families to look after. We have work to do. But if we can at least in the morning, in the evening, and at least one other time during the day, remember our refuge, remember the Buddha, remember his teaching, and remember his community, the Sangha. If we can remember what are called the three jewels of Buddhist refuge, the Buddha, who's our teacher, the Dharma, which is his path, and the Sangha, which is his community, they are, for those of you who are conversant in the 12-step literature, they are our higher power. Our higher power is the Buddha who actually obtained enlightenment and who is our guide and goal. And then the teachings he gave are our roadmap, and his community of practitioners are our companions. And so if we can take hold of and remember the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening, this is a very good start on making Dharma part of your everyday life. For example, when Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche gives the refuge vow, he encourages people who have taken refuge to remember the three jewels of our Buddhist refuge day and night. And he says, how you do this is very simple. He said, every day you receive something new. Maybe a plate of food is put in front of you as a meal, or maybe you get a package in the mail, or a present comes to you, or you buy something new for yourself. He said, at that moment, he said, if you think of the Buddha, you can mentally offer the food that's been given to you, or the package that you ordered. You can offer this to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then he said, you can imagine that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas give it back to you so that you can use it. And he said, just doing this simple exercise of imagining that you offer everything that's been given to you to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then imagine that they give it back to you. He said, this will build confidence in your relationship to the three jewels, because you will be remembering them every day, multiple times a day. So for the people who asked, how can we start to incorporate this practice in our everyday life? This is one way you can do that. Another way is this time of year, it is fall, it is autumn. And so the leaves are so beautiful. They're gold, they're red, they're yellow, they're brown. And they're like clouds of color, clouds of beauty. And Khenpo Rinpoche told us one time that in Tibet, he said, we didn't have any money, but we had a lot of beauty. So we offered the beauty of the natural world to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha for the benefit of sentient beings. And that way, he said, our enjoyment of the beauty of the world was not empty enjoyment for ourselves alone. It became a cause for practice. Our enjoyment of beauty, we could keep it for ourselves, or we could imagine that we mentally offer it to the Buddha and Dharma and Sangha for the benefit of others. For people who want to know how to practice more, these are two methods: offering things you receive and offering the beauty you experience to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so in this way, we may not be able to listen to the Dharma all day long, reflect on the Dharma all day long, and meditate on the Dharma all day long. And we may not be able to do that, but we can do these small practices of making offerings and remembering the Buddha and making aspirations. Maybe we see someone who is suffering and we don't know what to do. We can say, may the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha bless this person, and may I someday know how to help them. And so that way, even times when we feel inadequate, we can actually be of benefit to others. So I think we'll stop here for this evening, because I see we're at the bottom of the hour. So we did get through the first verse, And but you begin to see the you can begin to see the theme and the technique here. He's talking about the ideal bodhisattva who can practice day and night. Well, we're not that ideal bodhisattva, but at the very least, we can make mental offerings to the Buddhas and remember the blessings of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in our own life. And then, so then next week, we'll start in the text itself and dig a little deeper. But what I'd like for you to do as your homework would be, I'd like for you to think about and to read out loud the 37 practices at least once this coming week. That's your homework. And make note of the parts that are difficult for you. Okay, and if you can make a note of the things that you have some trouble with, and then hopefully that we'll begin to work on this next week. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit about basic quiet sitting meditation, and then we'll also be talking about compassion meditation. So we'll be so that that will be what we'll start on next time. And there's a couple of cleanup questions here. Someone says, oh, very cute. One Rinpoche said, monks in a monastery are lazy. You Westerners, your laziness is busyness. Yeah, I get that. And then, is there a reason why the author does not say Namo Chenrezi? I don't know for sure, but what Khenpo Rinpoche said one time was that frequently the Sanskrit name for something will be used first, because he said the Tibetans had an enormous admiration for India. They called it the Holy Land of India. So they had this enormous affection for India. And so frequently Sanskrit salutations were used at the beginning of all Tibetan Dharma texts in order to sort of bow toward India and to bow toward Indian Buddhism and Sanskrit, which helped them so much to get the Dharma in their own part of the world. So in any case, we'll have to stop here for tonight. So my encouragement is to read the 37 practices at least once out loud, to look through it and see if there's anything that you kind of get stuck on, and then we'll hopefully get to that as we progress, and then to try to do a little bit of a Dharma practice every day. Even if you're unfamiliar with Dharma practice, if when you wake up in the morning, you can sit up in bed and follow your breath as a meditation exercise. Just do a little bit of breath awareness meditation at the beginning of your day. This would be a great bit of homework to do. And my hope is that you will be able to establish a daily meditation habit through this class. So I'm hoping for everybody to be able to do just a little bit of meditation every day. A traditional amount is 21 breaths. And I have a little counter here on my beads at 21. And then in breath, out breath, I move a bead. In breath, out breath, move a bead. In breath, out breath, move a bead. And that way, that's about 2 or 3 minutes of meditation. So if you can do that sort of thing daily, even just sitting up in bed in the morning before you get out of bed. So it says, should we read just the small verses? There are 37. I'd read everything that's on the sheet, on the recitation sheet. And if you have the book, I think the entirety of the 37 practices is in there. When he has people read them, he has them start with Namo Lokeshvaraya, and he has them conclude with the colophon at the end, where he says, by the merit virtue of the merit gathered here by the power of relative and ultimate bodhicitta, may all sentient beings become like the protector Chenrezig, who dwells neither in the extreme of existence nor in that of peace. By the way, that's a full circle back to verse 1, the introductory verse, you who neither come nor go. Then I actually continue to read the verse at the end. The monk Thogme, a proponent of scriptures and logic, has composed these verses in a cave known as Ngulchu Rinchen Puk to benefit himself and others. So I even read the aspiration at the beginning, the colophon at the end. So if you can do the same, that would be awesome. So thanks for coming to book club. It's fantastic. It's like, yay, we're here, we made it. And I thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. And I will check and make sure that I use the mailing list from this first evening. There will be different Zoom links every week. I do need to tell you this. There will be different Zoom links every week. Therefore, if you have not registered for the subsequent weeks, please do. If you've made just one donation and are not able to donate more, send me an email at the address KM Wesley. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see. And I will sign you up for the rest of them for free. Because if you made one donation to cover them all, I still need to register you for each of the remaining 4, so that you'll get the Zoom links every week. So you can send me an email. Also, the video from this class will generally be made available the following day, unless I get really tired, and then it may take 2 days. But it will go up on my YouTube channel and be publicly searchable, but I'll also create a 37 practices playlist on my Lama Kathy Wesley YouTube channel. So it's like, thank you. Let's sit quietly and dedicate our merit. We'll do a mental dedication of merit tonight. We dedicate the merit of this session and make the aspiration that all beings everywhere find through the inner means of stability, the path to the never dying stable mind, forever blissful, being the juncture of means and wisdom. That's a very famous dedication prayer. May all beings connect to the Dharma, may they practice well, may they achieve enlightenment, and may they emanate endlessly to benefit all sentient beings. We dedicate the merit of this session with this thought in mind. Okay, thanks everyone. You can unmute, say hello, say goodbye.
Thank you, Lama Kathy. Good night.
Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Lama Kathy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah,
Good
it's
night.
great. It's so great to see everybody. Woo! Bye. Bye.
Love you.
Night.
Hey, lots of love. Yeah, that's great. Yay. Bye-bye.
Yay.
It's like, see you all. Oh my gosh, look at everybody. Woohoo. Okay,
you look
yeah,
so
all right.
good.
Okay, yeah, okay, Jennifer, bye-bye. Yeah, yeah, it's so great. Okay, see you later now. Bye-bye.